Alright, now, first thing I would suggest doing is, at this point, really, you don't have to use shrink wrap tubing. It's just going to give you the most professional, longest lasting, best looking job, okay? So I would suggest using it, and it's cheap. So, I mean, otherwise you can just use electrical tape. But I'm going to use shrink wrap. I want the best quality job. So what you need to do is you need to figure out how long the connections are going to be between each wire, okay? Then you're going to want to cut it to length, and then you're going to want to put it on one side of the wire, because what you're going to do is you're going to solder the wire together, and then you're going to slide whatever you cut and put on that wire over the actual connection, and then you're going to just heat this up with a lighter. I'm sure you can use, something else besides a lighter, but that's just what I'm going to use. That's all you really need. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting you want to make sure you get the right size ones. I think they usually shrink to about half their size. But I have a whole kit full of a bunch of them here. I just got it at Radio Shack. I think it was like $6. So basically, this is what's going to happen. I'm just going to, slide it over, and of course I'm going to cut it to length and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Finish that off camera, and you'll get to see what it looks like. Just another quick example. I'm going to be doing this with the regular purple wire here, and take it through it, putting this up to it, cutting it to length, and this is a much more realistic size. This is probably a lot more what you'll actually probably encounter yourselves. So I'll go ahead and slide that on, and usually I use alligator clips or I think they call it like a third hand or something. Since I'm taking these wire, and that's for soldering, when we get to the soldering part mostly, but since I'm kind of just taking these wires and doing like this is basically just tacking them in place, and soldering becomes very easy, and you really don't even need the clips for this. Although most people probably will still find them helpful. There's a lot of other videos that probably show, especially about soldering, that will have them in there, and you probably actually have them laying around your house. They might even be on some kind of a magnet or something like that. So but anyways, you just wrap the wire around like this. There's actually a few good ways to do it. I am just absolutely horrible at this kind of thing. I don't know why. So that looks alright, and we'll go ahead and, well, I guess we don't really have to put the shrink wrap on, but so anyways, there's a good example. There you go. And you just do that with all the wires, and of course, again, make sure you match them to the color corresponding ones. And if you have a really old car or a fairly new car, you might want to double check with the diagrams and make sure you have the right wires, because over time they have changed the colors from time to time. In fact, I noticed that on my old wiring harness, so you might have to actually check with that. They might have changed a yellow to a white or something like that. Alright, so it's time to solder, and probably the first thing you want to do is go ahead and what they call tinning your tip. You want to go ahead and tin your tip. You probably want to use a longer piece than this, but this is what I have laying around, and I'm going to go ahead and use it. And you want to get your tip nice and shiny. It's going to prevent it from corrosion, because I think what most soldering iron tips are going to be is like steel or something. And if you don't know, steel is mostly made out of iron and carbon, and steel rust, even though it's very strong and hard compared to most metals. Be careful if you're going to do it like me. And so you want to go ahead and get it tinned there, and usually I just wipe it on here and then it works fine, but you really can still use that solder, but I have so much of it, it's not even a deal. And what I do is, usually it becomes a ball since I'm doing this, and because it'll harden a little bit from the cooling, and I'll kind of rub it all over the tip there. I'm sure there's a few different ways, and I'm sure my way is not that great, so I probably let it melt a little too much solder, but again, it's fine. And I don't know if you can see that, my tip is all nice and shiny now. And this will also help the transfer of solder and heat. So I'm just trying to get the excess off. Like I said, there's going to be a little excess on there, and I was using it, I was kind of spreading it around the tip, but now it's just kind of being in a nuisance. But it's okay. It actually just makes it easier to solder. Let's go ahead and start with the gray wire right here. I think this is actually maybe the gray and black. But anyways, what you're going to do is you're going to take your solder from the top, alright? This is the best way to do it, and in fact, hopefully I don't ruin the rest of my kit here. This is one reason why it might actually be easier to use those gator clips. I just don't have them. And anyways, so what you'll do is you'll go ahead and heat up the wire a little bit, and then I'm going to come in from the top with the solder, and as you can see, what it's going to do is, even if you think you have the wires tied together, the solder is going to get in all the little creaks and crevices where the wires actually aren't touching, and plus it's going to give it a much stronger hold. And as you can see, I mean, the solder practically slips right on. It does the work for you. It's very easy. So just a matter of getting it just right. Okay, I think I actually messed up a little bit there because I accidentally let it touch the iron. You don't want it to actually touch the iron. See how I have a big blob here? It's because I let it touch the iron, and you really don't actually want to do that. And that's why I just used a little too much here, but I know how to save this. And that's essentially what you do. And you're just going to do this on each of your wires, okay? I'm not going to film it because it's going to take forever, but that's exactly the way you do it. And what you're going to want to do is actually, before you move to your next wire, go ahead and let it sit there for a minute. Alright? And actually be careful, because I just noticed I just fucked up. If you have your shrink wrap, don't put your shrink wrap too close to where you're doing this, because I don't know if you see, I actually just messed up. The shrink wrap actually went ahead and shrunk because it was so close to the wire and I took so long to solder it. It actually started shrinking already. So, but basically you'll want to do that, except have your shrink wrap way far away from where you're soldering it, okay? And you'll just do that for each wire. Guys, so we've got all our wires soldered together, and I went ahead and moved the shrink wrap in position. And actually, let me show you something. I don't know if you saw this before, but I accidentally left the shrink wrap actually right here while I was soldering. And what happens, obviously, this is metal wire, and it conducts heat. Heat traveled through, made the shrink wire shrink prematurely. So if anybody happens to do that on accident, I'll be trying this out here. And what I did was I took about the same size shrink wrap, and I just cut it open, and we'll see how that works to go ahead and mend it together. And of course, you can always go the ghetto way and use electrical tape. But the point of me even doing it this way is to keep it from being ghetto in the first place. Basically, you know, usually all you would need is a lighter. Like, I'll show you. I think this stuff heats or shrinks right about the temperature as the lighter, so it actually might take a second. You can get stuff that shrinks easier, but as you can see, it shrinks down and it's going to hold the wire in place. Now, what I might suggest is, and this will actually open a hand up for you, and it'll stop wasting. This is go ahead and light a candle. Turn that upside down. And I need to turn the fan off. I got a fan running right over here, so I'll turn that off before I really start getting into this. But if you light a candle, not only is it going to free up a hand, but you know, with a candle like this, it's going to concentrate the heat up, you know, almost like it would with a lighter. So you should be all right, and you should be able to melt it. So let's go ahead and turn off my fan, and let's go ahead and see how well it works on this shrink wrap. So I think we got one of them almost done. Let's go ahead and here, I'll move it up so you can see better. Unfortunately, I do not have good camera equipment. This camera's not half bad, but... And don't worry about melting your solder. I'd worry more about actually melting your wires, you want to try not to, get too much heat on the actual wires. I'm talking about the plastic insulation, not the actual shrink wrap. So as you can see, this is working quite well. In fact, I was probably getting a little too much heat. And voila, see the blue and the green wire there? Look at that. Perfect. So I suggest using a candle. Some other people might have some other ingenious ideas out there. I just figured I would post this video since I've got to do it anyways, and I'll do it vehicle specific, so for those of you that want it, makes it easier for you to look up. And so I don't have to sit here and videotape me doing every single wire. I'm sure you guys get the picture. It's quite simple. I'll show you on the wire I messed up here, and we'll take this little piece of shrink wrap I modded. So we can't get it on here. And I would suggest pressing down on it if you can, and keeping it straight right around here. And why is my camera not focusing? Keeping it straight so it can melt the bottom easier. So let's give this a try. It's probably going to get hot for your fingers. Let's see. And shit, I put a little too much heat on it. I was getting a little desperate there, but it actually looks like it went ahead and latched on pretty well to the actual wire, but there is a small piece of it that's sticking out, and that's fine, because unless you want to cut open another piece of this stuff and then put it on the bottom side and heat it up, you can do that, but I was actually kind of low on the shrink wrap, but that's what you would have to do to fix this problem. Alright, or you'd have to desolder it and do it all over again, but I didn't think that was a good idea. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to the actual wiring harness. After this, we'll go ahead and put it back in the truck. Real quick, I thought I'd show you here the finished product. This is what it looks like. It looks very nice. Look how natural that looks. It looks like you bought it that way almost. It looks amazing. So, and with these wires, I know they usually come like raised, the little things here. I actually just pushed them back down so that way it can't make contact and accidentally fuck with anything. So, and it turned out really well. Part of the reason you want to solder it is even with crimps, and even when you twist your wires and put them in crimps, there's going to be, little spaces, in between these wires, maybe even micro spaces where the wires don't completely touch, or even all the wires interact with each other. And when you solder it, you just you put it all together. There's none of these micro gaps that you get with wire like this. And the electricity can I guess that's what it would be. Yeah, electricity flow through these wires much better. At the connection point. So it should definitely be a good thing. Plus, you're eliminating the crimps, and you're eliminating, anything that can actually hinder the life of the harness itself. So, it should have very good power transfer. You might even get some better sound out of it. So, that probably some better power. So, anyways, we'll go back to reinstalling in the truck. I'll probably do it in the morning, so you guys will be able to see it much easier. All right. Thanks. Alright, here we are in the truck. I actually already put it in, but I'll show you how to do it. The problem is I only have one hand in here, and I don't have a tripod small enough to fit here in the truck, and even if there was one, I don't know where the hell I would put it in here, so that you could actually see it. Alright, so I went ahead and brought it back out for you. You got your power antenna here. I think these are for subs, these two big ones. You don't have to worry about those. And it's hard for you to see, but the wire harness, it plugs right into your car. It's very, very simple. But as you can see, there's the wiring harness. It just plugs into the two plugs in your car. I really can't get more explanatory than that. Plus, I showed you how to do it. And if you're wondering, these two wires here, those two wires, it's basically for this little iDock thing. It's like a little iPod connector thing that you mount elsewhere in the vehicle. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and finish putting this back in, and I'll come back when we start putting the trim stuff on. So my wire harnesses are already plugged back in and stuff. It's pretty self-explanatory how to do that. You know, you've already done the hard part. But anyways, the first thing you want to do is, with most head units, this is how it's going to work. You're going to get your trim piece or your trim piece adapter, you know, so it fits nicely in the hole. Otherwise, you're going to have a big empty space. It's going to look kind of weird. But with most head units, you're going to have to take it before you plug it in, and you're going to have to take it around the back side. This one's actually fairly easy. Usually they have like a metal cage, an extra metal cage kind of thing that goes around them. But, and you'll put it around the head unit like this, and now you'll start plugging it back in. Unfortunately, I only have two hands here. So I'm gonna have to. All I'm gonna have to do though is plug the wires back in. It's really easy to do. So very, very self-explanatory. So I'm just plugging the wires back in, and we'll be putting the dash back on. Just a quick note: if you are using anything like this that kind of has like an iPod hookup that gets mounted elsewhere in the vehicle, or really anything of the sort, make sure the wires that are actually coming from the CD player or the head unit actually stay behind there. I mean, if it's really needed, you know, you should get some extra slack, but otherwise, I mean, I guess you could pull it out. But for the sake of cleanness and for it fitting right, you actually put these back there, and that way you don't see any of that, and this is the only thing you have to hide, this thin black wire. So now we got it mounted pretty much. I mean, we don't actually technically have it mounted yet, but we're just putting in the screws at this point. And usually you, especially when you're putting in your first screw, you want to lift it up a little bit just to make sure it stays where it needs to be. Sometimes this can be a little difficult. I usually like to hand thread them in first. Of course, that only makes sense. Once you think you got it about right, go ahead and torque it down. I should probably hold it up while I'm doing this, because obviously it's going to tighten it down, and just a little plastic piece. Plastic will get brittle, and it does crack from time to time, so I think I got this mounted right. And you don't want to tighten these too much. You really just need to get them kind of like between snug and tied down, because they definitely need to be a little more than snug. Although what's good to do is kind of make them snug, you know, just a little less than snug on each of these, and then go back and forth and tighten them down. Because if you just tighten this all the way down and then go to this one, it'll look funny. So you want to kind of go to this one, you know, make sure it's tightened down. Or, I'm sorry, just a little more than snug, then come back to this one and do the same thing, and that's after hand threading them, and so that's always the easiest way to do it. Alright, anyways, time to go ahead and put back on the dashboard. So now that we're putting our dash trim back on, first thing you need to do is go ahead and put on your e-brake, just for safety's sakes. I already got mine on. Like I said when we were taking this off, you don't have to, I don't think you really have to do this, but it makes this incredibly easier. Anyways, go ahead and turn on your truck, put it in neutral or drive, it doesn't matter. Actually, the lower you have it, the better. Drive's probably a pretty easy position. As long as you got your e-brake on, doesn't really matter. And as long as you're not actually turning your truck on. So, and if you have an iPod type hookup device, try to kind of get it where you want it kind of threaded through, generally. Don't have to worry about getting it perfect just yet. I'm going to go ahead and plug in my... I'm not sure if that's what it is. This truck doesn't actually have it, but this thing, I mean, you can literally do it with like a finger or two, so it's fairly easy. You just... It might be different if you actually have... I think that's for the fog lights, but I don't have that in this truck, so... anyways, so you've pretty much got the back end. Here's my iPod hookup. I'm going to thread it kind of through the bottom, and I'm just trying to get that in there. This is hard to do with one hand. So I've got my iPod hookup where I want it, and so we're just pushing the dash back on now. Kind of do it, you know, far away from each other, kind of make a crisscross pattern. You don't want to put it all in on one side and not the other, it can make it harder. You might even have to take it back off. So, and something interesting to note too, if you do have some kind of little iPod hookup like this, and the cord's running from the head unit and you have extra cord, this top thing right here in this truck particularly, it's hollow in here. You can actually stuff wire. I actually did that when I had my iPod hookup more permanent with the actual cord that goes to the iPod. You can shove a ton of wire throughout here, so that's good to do if need be. So I'm planning to get rid of this head unit soon, so I don't have it super professional looking at the moment. So anyways, looks like I got my dash all pushed back on. I'm going to go around and check everything. Give it a push. It looks good, and as you can see, so does the placement of the CD player. We'll go ahead and put it back into park. Take your keys out, undo your e-brake, and you are done. That is all there is to it. So that's it.